This article first appeared on my Substack. Definitely go check it out over there if you get the opportunity, and shoot me a sub as well. It really supports me in my writing. Anyway, subtitle: What Endurance, Ambition, and Ecclesiastes Taught Me About Modern Restlessness. All right, and then here we have me finishing Ironman Texas. Took me 12 and a half hours. But we'll get into that. Introduction. This past April, at the not-so-ripe age of 20 years old, I became an Ironman triathlete. Finishing the race took me 12 hours and 28 minutes and was the culmination of a full year of training twice a day for at least 2 hours, not to mention thousands of dollars worth of gear, mental anguish, and no social life. All this so I could hear those incredible words, "You are an Ironman." Did it feel good? You bet it did. Proof below. I'm going to insert the vid.
Penner, you're an Ironman. Nick Moran, you did it, Nick. You are an Ironman.
On the video. For how long it felt good, however, is another matter entirely. And while I ended up having to go to the med tent and had a rather sleepless night thereafter, it wasn't until the next morning when the real dread kicked in. This is kind of an understatement, I'm not going to lie. I basically had a sip of champagne, had a slice of pizza, and then I woke up being wheeled in to the med tent. I threw up all over myself. They were force feeding me chicken noodle soup and an IV. It was terrible. I felt like I was in there for genuinely 4 hours. I thought I would leave and everybody would have gone home. I leave though, and kind of against the nurse's advice. She didn't want me to leave, but I was like, I got to get out of here. I think I was hallucinating a little bit, to be honest. And I get outside and I see my girlfriend and my mom. And I'm like, how long was I in there? And they're like 45 minutes. So all this to say, it was definitely a rough outing, I should say, after I finished the race. But once the adrenaline kind of wore off. Anyway, where was I? I had just hobbled out of bed at the Airbnb and began lumbering lamely down the stairs to the kitchen where my girlfriend, parents, and grandparents were all happily making breakfast when an awful thought occurred to me. What next? It wasn't that I had thought the Ironman would fulfill me for the rest of my life, or that I thought I would never have to do another hard thing ever again, but surely for at least a few weeks, if not just one, I might have managed to feel satisfied, but I didn't. What will you do now? The question resounded once more in my head. I knew, of course, the 140.6 miles of the previous day had been hard, but they seemed so distant now. Hearing my name announced, getting the title of Ironman, it all just felt hollow. I had spent a year of my life obsessing over this goal, but after a measly 12.5 hours, that journey had ended. I had climbed the peak of a mountain, but could no longer appreciate it from on top. It was as though I had allowed myself to believe I could set up shop atop that mountain and rest there all my days, but now, from my new vantage point, I could see all of those other mountains yet to be climbed, a great expanse of sprawling peaks, sharp and round, jagged and weathered, towering seductively before me in every direction like sirens of stone. I knew then I couldn't rest. I could never rest. And yet worse, I still knew that were I to summit any of those distant peaks, I'd only feel the same way I felt now. Restless. Yeah, this is really the meat and potatoes of this article in some ways. I'm kind of just getting into how in life there are things that we really just can't be told and understand. I'm not a wealthy person, but it is my understanding that many people who are rich say money doesn't buy happiness. And you hear that a million times, but you think, nah, if I'm rich, I'll just spend better than they do. And I'll know what to do, and therefore it will buy happiness in my case. And this never tends out to be how it goes. And I'm sure if I ever come into any decent amount of money, I'll say the same thing. But it's one of those things that until you actually do it, it's hard to realize that it was kind of a vain pursuit. That's not to say things aren't worth doing, and we'll get into that. But there's these things that we just have to live and to experience and to realize that, you know what, maybe I was putting too much stock into this. And that's exactly what this Ironman was for me. I really did train 2 hours a day without stopping for about, I forget what I say in the article. It might have been a bit of an exaggeration, but it was about 4 months without rest days, which most people would say that's probably ill-advised. But I had a coach, and so I just trusted him and what he was doing. And it worked. I mean, I had a very good time considering it was my first one. And I went from not being able to swim to being able to swim. So there were a lot of benefits that came out of this. But those weren't the things that I was really thinking about. I was more thinking about the satisfaction I was going to get from it, how great it would feel to be able to go through life as an Ironman. And I can tell you, like, not that much changed from it. So, but let's continue. Of course, I'd heard stories of boxers winning the world championship and feeling like it had all meant nothing, or men rising out of poverty, coming into money, only to realize a certain anxiety still laid crouching like a tumor in their souls, growing larger and more hungry the more they chased. More still, I had heard stories of the woman who travels, lived, and experienced, she remains unchanged. Yet I suppose I must have fancied myself immune to such natural occurrences. And if not immune, I at least had the naive belief that the Instagram and LinkedIn posts would be worth it. And then, more secondarily, that the struggle and the skills I learned would serve me in some capacity. 6 months later, I see that only the latter of those statements is true. That is really the truth, and I get more into this, but like I was doing this in a lot of ways for the clout. That's not a word you hear as much anymore, I will say. I feel like that word really had its heyday in the 2010s. I haven't heard clout as much recently, but I was doing this. Now I think clout has been replaced with aura. That's the new word. So I was really doing it for the aura, I guess you could say, which is just the most, horrifically Gen Z thing I've ever said. That brings me to the first thing I regret about my Ironman, chiefly my motives for doing it. I don't have pomegranate juice today, I have water. The rewiring of motivation. Before I started training for my Ironman, such an event would have sounded impossible and suicidal. A year earlier, I had nearly drowned off the coast of Sardinia while on vacation after swimming no more than 100 yards, a mere fraction of the 2.4 miles that an Ironman begins with. This is true. I never would have thought I could have done an Ironman after that experience. I genuinely almost died. I was like grabbing onto the sides of other people's boats to get back to my own. When I realized I couldn't. I was trying to swim from a boat to a beach, and they have like a big no wake zone, so it was kind of a far swim. I was with my buddy and his brother and dad, and they all made it look easy, and then I literally I almost drowned. So embarrassing stuff, but I think I've redeemed myself with the Ironman in some capacity. And while my pride was damaged by the incident, I still had no plans of correcting it. That was until my Instagram feed started to flood with people doing Ironmans and exploring the race's virtues. Then not long after that, a friend of mine approached me asking if I'd like to train for Ironman Texas with him the following spring. Having already been medically pre-programmed by my Instagram feed and also being in a possession of a kind of hubris that can only be found in young men in want of challenge, I said yes. And this is a point worth touching on. I don't know. I can't speak to other people's feeds, but I had a point a couple of years ago when I first started training. Well, not a year ago when I first started training for the Ironman. Well, no, I guess it's almost two now, where my feed was just flooded with Ironman content. I had really not expressed interest in it. It just happened, as these things kind of tend to do. And then the more I started thinking about the Ironman and talking about it, the more I started seeing it, such as the nature of attention, I guess. And it felt like my online world was so consumed by it too. And I honestly think this did kind of coincide with the whole run club era on Instagram. It's kind of petering out a little bit now, but it was definitely had its heyday a couple years ago. And so the whole tie-in with Ironman there. But yeah, I was seeing a ton of that. And so I felt like, oh, this might actually be a cool thing to do. And then it's not my line. My girlfriend's aunt said that about my endeavor. She's an Ironman herself. Is he ready for this? Can he do this? But there is something about young men where it's I think especially in this day and age more than ever, where we feel dissatisfied by life. And I get into this later, but in want of challenge for no other purpose than the challenge itself and for the subsequent aura that might be gained from it. Okay. I spent the first 6 months of training half-assing it. This is true. I didn't know what I was doing. Skipping workouts and sticking to nothing resembling a set workout plan. Yet all while envisioning in my head the edit I would post on Instagram and the song I would use for the story post and so on and so forth. Instead of focusing on how training would change me and change my beliefs over what I could achieve, I instead thought about how the end result would change other people's views of me and how the experience would be commoditized and shared. This is a really weird phenomenon. I get into this more. I don't know how many of you guys have felt this, but something about Instagram has fundamentally reshaped the way that I interface with the world. As Heidegger says, technology is not merely a means to an end, but it fundamentally reorients the way that you interact with the world and perceive the world and give the world your attention. And I think Instagram's done this weird thing now where I can't think about a thing that I'm going to do. Well, I can now. I deactivated my Instagram account, but I couldn't think about a thing that I was going to do without thinking about the post that I'm going to make about it, how I'm going to share it, and the song even like down to minute stuff like that, the song that I'm going to put with the post, which is just, I mean, to me, it's incredibly cringe looking back. It was cringe at the time. I was disturbed by seeing this pattern emerge in my own head, but I couldn't help it. And I think that's what Instagram does. It subtly shifts you into this constant, like, commoditize my experiences kind of mindset. My motives were entirely external. There was no part of me that desired to the early wake-ups, the grueling pool sessions, the 5-hour bike workouts that took up my entire Saturday. They were merely a means to prestige and vanity. Here I'd like to sketch out, okay, let me touch on that really quick. I mean, I despised the training. My girlfriend could vouch for me on that. I mean, the amount I complained about it, she was getting fed up. She was kind of upset. She was like, why are you doing this to yourself? You talk such a big game about pursuing things that you're interested in, and then this is what you're doing. All fair points from her. And again, I think it all comes down to prestige and vanity. Here, I'd like to lay out a sketch of why I think I was able to trick myself into sacrificing a year of my life. And this isn't to say like I didn't enjoy parts of it. I really enjoyed the race. There were times where I felt like, man, this is really cool that I'm doing this. But ultimately, I put aside a lot of things that I could have been focusing on. My studies, for one. General, like, writing. I didn't write last year, and this is what I enjoyed the most is writing. So yeah. Anyway, I'd like to lay out a sketch of why I think I was able to trick myself into sacrificing a year of my life towards such a fleeting and vain purpose. In making this sketch, I don't want to just saddle social media with all the blame simply, but rather the mechanism by which social media distorts our attention. To do this, let's examine the phrase dad lore. This term seems to have appeared a few years ago and is the concretization, I apologize for my stumbling over a word that I literally typed, so I should know how to pronounce it, of a fairly typical phenomenon that we have all collectively observed. Mainly that our fathers seem to have a lot of fun stories. That's it. If it were merely that innocuous, though, I wouldn't be talking about it. So I think dad lore is a really good way of looking into this, because I think if you're talking about doing things just for aura, I don't think there's anything more formally kind of that packages that idea as dad lore. So the problem is the term doesn't just stay a term. It becomes a justification and a permission slip to do things we truly have no interest in or that are dangerous just so we can get a good story out of it. I could always justify the Ironman to myself as great dad lore, even though my heart was never in it. And I think that's the problem with when we kind of make terms for things that really shouldn't have terms. Our dads having good stories, I don't think, like, it's funny because collectively we all said, wait, we all have this experience where our dads have these experiences, and so let's make a term out of it. And like dad lore, it's objectively funny, but I think it slowly becomes a thing where it becomes canonized in our vocabulary, and then we say, you know what, yeah, I might as well go do this thing that I really should not be doing in any capacity, and I'm gonna get a great story out of it. And so let me get into why there's some distinctions here, though, because that's doing something for a story isn't necessarily a bad thing, but let's get into that. Now, readers might object and say, what's wrong with wanting to make great stories? Surely there's nothing wrong with trying to lead an interesting life. I would agree. Really nothing super wrong with that. The error here lies in the fact that our fathers and theirs before them did not make the stories they shared with us out of the desire to build dad lore. Their experiences weren't some biographical currency they could build up just to feel interesting. They simply did what interested them, and the stories came out of those interests organically. This is the real crucial point. Like, when we have this concrete term that we're chasing, and almost like it's a currency that we can build up, a biographical currency, as I say, that's where the issue comes in for me. It's not, you shouldn't do things that you think are going to be great experiences, but don't do it just for the story. Do it because of some intrinsic want to do it. That's like it's nonsensical. You shouldn't go and get in an MMA cage purely because you want to have a story and feel hard and stuff like that. Those are the worst reasons to get into a sport like that. The reason you would want, and this is not me condoning getting into MMA, although I've done a little bit myself, it's a good time. But like, that's what it should be for. It's a good time. I'm learning a skill, and I want to practice it. You know what I mean? But it shouldn't be, I want to go and make a post on Instagram, or I want to tell people that I got in a cage and fought somebody. That's cooked. That's cooked. It's absolutely terrible. We can't be doing that. It's just a bad reason to do anything. It really is. It just means you're living your life fundamentally for other people. And even there, I feel like I should qualify. There's nothing wrong with living your life for other people if you're doing it in, say, like a Christian way, like a Mother Teresa type of way. That's fine. You know what I mean? But that's also coming from an intrinsic love that she has for those other people. Whereas if you're doing something just for the story, then you're living your life just for the perception of other people. Mother Teresa's not doing those good works for the perception of other people. So anyway, I think that enough has been said on that point, but let's keep going. But now with the concretization, that's just not an easy word, is it? Of the term and the countless edits spawned from it, it has become a standard by which we measure our experiences of the world to. We will now do things that we have no desire to do merely to have a story or a photo to share. Now, dad lore, while a problem in the way it colors our experience of the world, is merely the symptom of a much deeper issue. That being the way social media has uprooted our inherent motivation structures, replacing the internal motivators with external ones. Where in the past, that trip to Charleston would have been a beautiful trip with friends, it becomes a content retreat. Not fully, of course, but in part. There are story quotas to be hit, photo angles to be corrected, and the hunt for the perfect song to go along with the post that symbolizes the trip, but also is enjoyable to the rest of my followers. So when I look back on actually, there's a break there. So that's the other thing. Social media has broken our internal motivation structures in terms of why we do things in a lot of ways, I think. And it's really subtle. You might not even have noticed these things directly in yourself, but I think if you really take a second to think about it, you might realize, wow, yeah, you know what? I am thinking about, I need to get a photo of this, or I need to, the perfect example is just go to a concert. And I feel like such an unk when I'm bringing this up, but go to a concert and see the amount of people that are taking videos of it to put on their stories. It's like people have to know I was at this concert. That's just incredibly chopped. And we need to move past it collectively. And I don't think it's going to happen because, like I'm saying, like our motivation structures have just been ripped out, and we are really, really so much more hyper aware of what other people think about us and other people seeing us do stuff. And I know none of this is new, but I want to phrase it in this way because I think when you realize that your motivations for doing things are so much more mimetic than your parents' motivations for doing things might have been. It doesn't just say mimesis is a new thing, but we increasingly want things because other people want them more and more and more. Like I talked about in my last article, we are now consuming together more than creating together. So enough has been said on that point, though, I think. So when I look back on my Ironman, what I regret most isn't that I trained for the wrong reasons, but that I couldn't tell the difference between the real reasons and the ones that have been installed in me. Social media doesn't just show us what to want. It rewires the very mechanism by which we come to want anything at all. What used to arise from curiosity, love, or faith now arises from exposure, performance, and comparison. I didn't become an Ironman just because I wanted to live a good story. I became an Ironman because I no longer knew what a good story was unless I could post it. Yet even if my motives had been pure, I suspect the feeling would have been the same, because beneath all the curated captions and motivational edits lies a deeper hunger, one that's driving a whole generation towards ever more extreme tests of endurance. Every weekend, people are running 100-mile ultramarathons, plunging into ice baths, hiking entire mountain ranges, or signing up for Hell Week challenges that mimic military training. A century ago, few would have done such things voluntarily, not because they lacked the willpower, but because life itself already demanded enough of them. Their hardship was baked into the structure of existence. Ours is not. We live in an age where comfort has become suffocating and anesthetic. Our bodies are safe, but our souls are restless. And so we manufacture difficulty, we hurt ourselves on purpose, hoping that pain might still lead us to meaning. The Ironman, the ultramarathon, the cold plunge, these are our modern pilgrimage. Only now the gods we seek at the end are ourselves. But even in these ordeals, the ancient question remains, unchanged by all our technology. What profit hath a man of all his labor under the sun? We'll get into the Ecclesiastes tie-in just a sec, but I'm going to say a little bit on this. Quick sip, actually. I've been doing a lot of talking today in general. This is insane. Really think about it. no one would have done an Ironman 100 years ago. This is not fundamentally because people in the 20s didn't have bicycles or things like that, or they didn't know how to swim, or they didn't know how to run. It's because life just had a lot more meaning baked into it. I really think all of these, I mean, all of history in a sense is reactionary, but I think all of these offshoots, the cold plunges, I think the health benefits are a lot secondary to the mental toughness that you gain from it. Hiking entire mountain ranges, I actually kind of support that one. But I think it's a good example because I think more people do that now than would have in the past. Or especially these hell weeks. I mean, this is incredibly, I find it really cringe personally, that we've got men paying thousands and thousands of dollars to go have another man, not in the military, by the way, to run them through like a little pseudo hell week and yell at them and call them soft and say that, you know, their women don't love them and all of these things. It's just bizarre beyond belief, but I understand it because I mean, look at life. We sit around, we Uber Eats everything. We are constantly on our phones. I mean, check your screen time from this week. It's probably preposterous. We don't talk to each other in the same way. Our conversations don't reach the same level of depth. We have no creative outlets. So, I mean, it's not surprising at all that these are things that people do. And in fact, in some ways, I support them. But I think the problem is we're seeking such deeper meaning from these things that I personally didn't find it in my Ironman. And I don't think you're going to find in an ice bath. It's going to be temporary, and it's certainly better than nothing. But I think we're just our general living has been so detached that it's really anything that you can find, you try to find. So yeah, but let's get into Ecclesiastes. So as I just said, what profit hath a man of all his labor under the sun? The thing with technology is like this is still an old problem, but I think it's taken on new legs just given the state of technology, and it's exacerbated it. But let's get into this. The opening line of the book of Ecclesiastes states that all is vanity. Now, such an observation might seem obvious when we are speaking of the desolate, egoistic pridescape of social media. Yet if all is in fact vanity, it would seem to suggest that even those who toil in silence and from a place of internal motivation are still doing so in vain. Before we accept or deny that premise, let's read a little more. Here's what follows. I'm going to take another sip just to get ready for this. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes round to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. It's an incredible passage. I have not read the entirety of the Bible, just the Gospels and select books, like Genesis and Exodus and whatnot. But I recently read Ecclesiastes on the recommendation of a friend, and this just blew me away. And it's not anything. I think we all inherently know this. I think we all inherently know that one day everything's going to come to an end, and that ultimately what we fill our days with is fleeting in a sense. Again, this is not me saying there aren't better and worse ways to fill our days. I think there obviously are. But I think this passage is an important reminder because it shows us that there's something in the human heart that will never truly be satisfied. You have a sales quota you got to hit for next month. You hit it, well, you got another one for the next month. It's going to be a little higher. You might have to work a little bit harder, but ultimately there's going to be a new mountain to climb. But let's continue. This passage isn't telling us that my despair at finishing my Ironman was merely because I was standing atop the wrong mountain or doing so for the wrong reasons, which is true. It was definitely the wrong mountain and for the wrong reasons. Let's not get it twisted. It is telling us that in truth, I had been chasing wind. And that's the real heart of it. My motives were secondary to this fact. The real truth is that we are ephemeral beings and as such all that we do is just as ephemeral. We desire all the bounty of this place, and yet, were we ever to possess it, we would still find it wanting. This is kind of like us. I don't know if there's the scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker is talking to Harvey Dent in the hospital, and he's like, I'm not going to do the impression, but he's basically talking about how he's like a dog chasing cars, and if you ever actually were to catch the car, he wouldn't know what to do with it. That's kind of us. He obviously different meanings. He's making a different analogy there, but that's kind of us in life. It's if we could ever possess this ephemeral kind of desire that we actually have, we would still 100% find it wanting, and it would be on to the next thing. We're never going to be satisfied by a material possession or a goal or an achievement because it's of this world. It doesn't have an eternal nature. This world's not an eternal place. Thus, anything we do on it will not be eternal. And I think that's a really important point to grasp. If we're looking for satisfaction that does not leave us, that's not going to be found in one thing, but rather in the habitual, or as I'm going to point to in a sec, the eternal. So now C.S. Lewis observed that the fact that we seem to have this desire that no worldly thing can satisfy ought to point us to something of another world altogether. To him, this desire was God. Similarly, Augustine said that our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. While I personally agree with both of them, it still took me doing my Ironman to come to terms with this truth. I am Christian, so I do believe that God is where we would find our everlasting happiness and our joy, and that because he's not of this world, that is essentially he has something eternal that we can take and we can be fulfilled with. It's kind of the opposite of Buddhist teachings, where they say that all of our suffering comes from desire. Therefore, we must abolish desire and then we will be happy. It's kind of approaching the same problem of never being satisfied from different ends. So we will be satisfied if we have God, and or we should just get rid of all of our desire. But those are the two main kind of religious ideas in the West versus the East. A professor had a really good quote to me. I asked him, does it not seem like Buddhism is just desiring to abolish desire? And he goes, ah, yes, you have found the secret of Buddhism, the trick of Buddhism. It's tricking desire into committing suicide. So good quote. But either way, whichever route you take, there is this problem that we have desires that can't be fulfilled in this world. And so whether it's better to just not have them, or whether it's better to find God, there's not much else that can be done. But we have to realize that they are vain in a sense. Now, this, of course, is not me saying that you must believe in God, nor is it me saying that we ought not to do anything, though I would advise you believe in God, to be honest. I don't see how you can look around the world and not see a divine creator behind it all. Quite far from it. Ecclesiastes does not end in nihilism, but rather gratitude. To know the vanity of all things is not to despair, but to be freed from illusion, to seek joy not in permanence, but in our participation with the eternal. Of chasing wind, this much has then been said. It is really just about participating in the eternal. We're here for a time. Let us be grateful that we are here at all. In summation, I am not telling you not to do an Ironman, nor am I telling you to sell your ice bath, but I am telling you two crucial things that we are often too quick to forget. Get your motivations right. This is one. Get your motivations right. Don't do something because of an edit you saw or because somebody else told you how great it is, and especially not because it will make great dad lore. Do it because you are curious, or because you love it, or because it will aid the people around you. Remember that your underlying structures of motivation are under siege by social media, and the line between what Instagram wants and what you want becomes hazier the more you scroll. This is very true. The more you scroll, the less you're going to know thyself. So definitely keep that in mind. Your social media is like a mimetic vortex, and I've been using the word mimetic throughout this. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's Rene Girard's idea that we just want things because other people want things. We want the things other people want, I should say. It's kind of this long cycle of people wanting something, therefore we want it. Anyway, two, more importantly, when you do achieve that goal and hear your name announced, don't expect to feel satisfied for long. Remember, you have merely been chasing wind, that tomorrow you will chase it somewhere else, and that you will stand on some other mountaintop. Just enjoy the view while you are there, have a safe descent, and get ready to climb again. and be oh so thankful for it all. So little happy ending for you guys who stuck around till the end. The initial point stands. I didn't feel much after finishing my Ironman besides the initial adrenaline rush. I know my face probably says otherwise. This guy looks like he's eternally satisfied, but he certainly was not. And you will not be either. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to have highs and lows. You're going to hit that peak and realize you got to go back down and start climbing again. But that's what life's about. And honestly, just find gratitude in that. That's the best thing to do. And also, let's not forget the beginning of what I said. Get your motivations right. Don't do things to please other people. Life is simply too short to not lead a life that you don't find fulfilling in any aspect, or that you don't truly desire. And I think it's so easy with social media or in college. Like, I'm at a school where a lot of the kids are doing finance and they're all getting great internships and all this stuff. And it's tough for me as just another person who feels, peer pressure and feels mimetic desire to see what they're doing and go, why am I not just doing that? Why am I spending my time writing? But then I remember, I'm here for my purpose. I'm here to do what I truly love and care about. And at the end of the day, I know that is what the life that's worth living. So get your motivations right, but at the same time, realize that even the best motivations of the world are not going to satisfy you in the end. Anyway, this has been my article. I really hope you enjoyed. If you want to check it out on Substack, please feel free to do so there. Check out my other articles on Substack as well. Super passionate about those. I don't have many yet. I'm still